So I'm back at working on the Denali today, and it's been frigidly cold here the last week or so, and I haven't been able to get out here as much as I'd like to, but today we're at plus 2 degrees and it's sunny. I'm going to take advantage of this time. I did pick away at this a little bit, getting it back together, and the last time you guys saw it, it was still on the stand and I was about to start assembling like new oil pump, stuff like that. That's all done. And I'll show you where I'm at. Got the block back in. Everything's internally assembled. You know, oil pumps back on. Got the flywheel back on, or the balancer back on. Got everything bolted on around the back, transmission housing, all that kind of stuff. Next is throwing the heads on. But you can see I got everything all cleaned up. Pistons clean. Cylinders honed. Even got the heads cleaned up. They look way better than before. And I even put new spark plugs in it because when I pulled the old plugs out, I checked them, and they were supposed to be 4 thousandths of an inch gap for my spark plug, and some of the plugs were closer to 80 thou, almost double what they're supposed to be. So looking back, yeah, they've got about 100,000 kilometers on them, which is a little beyond their lifespan, but they're changed now. So I'm going to start putting this back together. Hopefully I can be efficient with the daylight because it is limited, and yeah, I want to get this thing done. We're supposed to have some mild temperature this weekend, which is good, because last night I was out here and my feet were numb after about an hour. But I'm going to start pounding away at this and see how much I get accomplished today. Yeah, so I thrashed away last night. 45 minutes or so was all like I was working in the dark, but I got it all put back together. I've got coolant in it, oil in it, and the only thing left to do is crank it over, and hopefully we have oil pressure. We got power. Pretty bright out. Oil pressure is the important one there. That's what we're going to watch. And we have oil pressure. Some good oil pressure. I shut it off because it didn't sound great. Not quite sure what's going on. We had oil pressure. Now whether the lifters just don't have enough oil in them yet because they're hydraulic, but it was making some noise I didn't like. We're just gonna fire it up again and have a listen. Sounds worse than before. Okay, I pulled off the driver's side valve cover, and I'm going to show you guys what's going on right now. I got the coils hooked back up, so I'm going to fire it back up. There's no oil in the front 2 rockers and the rear rocker. So those front two rockers, let me move my light. Those front two rockers, there's no oil coming out of the push rods, and the back one is also not pushing any oil out. Now that rear cylinder and this front cylinder are both the DOD lifters, and I don't know if it's just taking a while for them to prime, because the second to last rocker arm there does have oil in it. Oil's coming out, and that's a DOD lifter. So why these other ones are not pushing oil, I don't know yet. It could just take a long time to prime, and maybe I gotta drive it. I don't like that. I'm gonna pull the valve cover on the other side and see if it's also the DOD lifters on that side as well. So bear with me for a minute. I'm gonna pull that side apart. So I just took the valve cover off this side and fired it up real quick, and same thing on this side. The middle 4 rocker arms on this side are the DOD lifters, and 3 of the 4 have no oil. So I'm not sure if they just take a long time to prime. I haven't been able to find anything online when I researched it. The only other thing I think it could be is the valley cover down there, which I did not replace, has 4 solenoids on it. And those 4 solenoids is what controls the DOD system. The reason I didn't replace that is because it's about 250 bucks. But in my head, I'm racking my head trying to figure out why that would cause the problem. Because even if those solenoids malfunctioned, I can't help but feel that they should still be getting oil. Because on those lifters, here I'll show you one of the lifters. Now this is one of the lifters I took out. That hole right there, that I'm pretty sure is the oiling hole, which is in line with the oil gallery in the block. So that should be getting fed oil all the time. This, I believe, is the oil feed for the DOD system. So even if this wasn't working, there should still be oil getting there to go up inside and come out the top, up the push rod to the rocker arm. But I don't know for sure. That's just what my feeling is. And I even called an engine builder, and he didn't even know that much about these. He wasn't quite sure either. But I don't want to just run the motor in hopes that it goes away, because I don't want to cause damage. So I'm going to have to research this a little bit more, because I don't want to just go and spend $250 if I don't have to, if those solenoids are working fine. And yeah, I'm a little stumped at the moment, so I'm going to have to do a little bit more research, and I'll let you guys know what I figure out. So I've done as much research as I can regarding the DOD lifters on this thing, and from what I can understand, even if the DOD solenoids weren't working properly, I should still have oil coming out of the top of those lifters, which makes sense, because like I said, there's that second hole on the lifter. The larger hole is the DOD system, the smaller hole is in the oil gallery all the time and should always have oil coming through it. So there's nothing that says about pre-soaking these things so you get all the air out. It's just put them in and run them, is what I've gathered. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just throw a little bit of oil on these lifters that are dry right now, because I don't want them to run dry any more than they have to. So I'm going to dump a little bit of oil on the lifters, on the rockers, sorry, and put the valve covers on, take it for a drive. Hopefully it eventually gets the oil it needs. I'm not going to drive long, maybe, we'll see, maybe a 5-minute drive or whatever, taking around a couple blocks. I got a buddy coming over, he's going to help me put the hood on, so it's a little bit more legal to cruise around. And hopefully by the time I get back, she isn't sounding like a typewriter. Hopefully. Alright, after doing some research and going down to the GM dealer, I ended up talking to a technician down there and told him what was going on with the truck, and right away he's like, yeah, we've had that before here too. And then he asked me if I had changed the valley cover, which has the 4 solenoids on it that controls the DOD system. I said no. So he said there's a screen underneath the oil pressure sensor. Check the screen first, see if it's plugged. And then he recommended just changing the whole thing anyway, because that's what they do at the dealership now, at least that dealership. If they ever have a truck come in with the DOD system and they've had a malfunction with the DOD system, they replace lifters, valley cover, everything. And so I ordered one, and that's what we're going to change today. So I've got the old one out. I took the intake off, got the old one out, and the old one obviously has seen better days. There's my new one. That's what it should look like. This one's pretty cruddy. And now the screen he was talking about under the oil pressure sensor, mine's missing. I remember when I took the motor out, I found this thing laying back behind the cover like this on top of the motor. And it's pierced right there, which tells me somebody probably got in there with a hook and pulled it out. But that was not my doing. I don't know who's been in this. But obviously I didn't have a plug screen plugging up the works, but who knows what crap went through it and caused problems. The new one, the new one comes with all the bolts already in it. It comes with a new screen. It's hard to see in there, but you can see it on this side. It comes with a new screen in there. So hopefully this has been the problem all along and we can fix this today. So I'm going to drop it in there and we'll fire this up and see if we have oil to our lifters. Okay, I got the valley cover all torqued in place, all plugged in, and I'm going to slap the intake back on now. Alright guys, a lot's happened. I put the intake on, I ran the motor, didn't change anything. So I made the decision to tear the motor apart again and busted everything apart, heads off, because I just rack in my head what could be causing this oiling issue to these DOD lifters. And in the end, the only thing I can think of is the lifters themselves are junk. The new ones I just put in are junk. And they were cheap eBay lifters, no-name lifters. I paid like $180 for a set of 8. I called the dealership to price out lifters through them, and they were $140 a piece. This is Canadian currency, so it's a little different American. The end result was I went with a local parts supplier and I bought a name brand lifter, not one that I've heard of, but a name brand lifter that they said they've had lots of success with, and they were about $55 a piece, so much more reasonable than the dealership, more than what you would find on eBay. But I was at the point where I don't know what else it could be, so I decided to pull the heads, change the lifters, put it back together, and it worked. I'm going to show you. I'm going to fire it up right now. There's oil coming out of every single lifter now. Kind of hard to see on the camera. The engine sounds great. There's no chattering, there's no lifter tick, there's nothing. Kill that before it kills me. Door's closed. So I mean, nothing like these looked identical to the ones I just put in there. They look identical to the ones I took out. But for some reason, these cheap no-name brand eBay Chinese produced manufactured lifters did not work. And I gave them a chance. Oh, I did not want to pull this motor apart. I gave them a chance. I ran this motor longer than I should have with them in it, and they just didn't work. And the brand I ended up going with anyway, never used them before, but Sealed Power was the brand I used. And you can't argue with results because that's the only thing I changed. Even when I pulled the motor apart, everything still looked perfect. And I put those different lifters in. Sorry. I put those different lifters in and she's good. So I buy a lot of stuff on eBay, and this is one of those very rare few times that you ever get burned by it. And I mean, odds were I was going to get burned at some point, so my number was up. I got screwed by it, learned from it. You know, some things you shouldn't cheap out on, especially when it's internal parts that take a lot of time to get back to. Not a lot of time. I mean, I had the engine torn apart in about 2.5 hours because I've done it already. But yeah, it's finally done. I'm thrilled. I can get this thing out of here and get back to working on that guy who's been neglected. So that's all for today. Till next time.